I'm here and coffeeless today because a few days ago something occurred to me that's been weirding me out ever since. Now every so often you may notice something that upsets the comfort that you would feel in what most consider to be a normal situation. It's that walking into a room and something isn't quite right feeling, but instead of the addition of a new element, this time it's the absence of something that you're already accustomed to. Something is different or missing from the subconscious list of absolutes that you expect to exist and then subsequently pay no attention to. See, the problem is that it's not immediately obvious. It's subtle, so it requires some kind of mental deliberation in order to properly deduce what the problem is. But then once you've identified it, it becomes clear as day. One good example is the location of food in a fridge or pantry. Now I'm not talking about every food item that's in a given location. Instead, I'm referring to products that one might buy on a whim or an impulse and as a result don't want as much as their main course. So you stick it somewhere unimportant, casually, and forget about its existence, except for in the deep recess of your mind that logs and confirms its presence whenever you scan that general area. Then someone else in your household, mom, roommate, angry squatter, etc., decides that you weren't eating it and that it's free game for their thieving mouth. Upon confrontation, you're informed of this fact, or the even more upsetting possibility that it's been simply thrown out. But it's that couple seconds that you spend scouring whatever shelf in whatever pantry on which you were foolish enough to leave your possessions. Those might be the most mysteriously uncomfortable seconds of your day. Just kidding. Another good yet more subtle example is when you're attempting to sit down at your computer. Now this is likely exclusive to people with adjustable office chairs, but for everybody I think sitting at a computer chair, especially for you Tumblr folk, is something that you've done so many times that it's now become a reflex. Dropping down onto that cushion is something that you're so familiar with that you don't even give it a second thought until someone or some great force of nature lowers the seat immeasurably, causing it to descend to a height that even midgets would be insulted by. Now you may not notice the difference in height when entering the room, but you're definitely going to take note of it when you begin to sit down and that half second occurs where you believe you're going to die. And wedged into that half second somewhere is that mysterious feeling that something is a little bit askew. Perhaps the most predominant and noticeable example would be the absence of teeth in somebody's mouth. See, teeth are great because they're one of the few physical barriers that determine whether or not somebody looks like a human being or the Loch Ness Monster on two legs. Now, I personally pay little to no attention to a person's teeth until I notice that they're completely without them. I'm not entirely sure what's so unnerving about seeing somebody without teeth, but I imagine that it has to do with them being the unmovable gate that determines how close together your lips are allowed to be. Once they're gone, all the meat around your face hole begins to squish together like some sort of soft, pillowy tectonic plate. And this causes this terrible facial earthquake whenever somebody has the misfortune of trying to close their mouth. There are some passive activists that insist on living without the aid of false teeth, and this presents an altogether different and entirely unique language puzzle where suddenly I'm going to the store becomes I'm sure it's supposed to be endearing, but I think it makes anybody with a proper grasp of what the English language is supposed to sound like want to avoid them even more. Now that I've given you 3 examples that might aid you in trying to figure out what could be wrong in any given room, I'm going to give you a suggestion if you're ever interested in messing up any of your friends. If you have a painting or any work of art on your wall that's a certain dimension and it's been there for a very long time, find another painting that has the same dimensions and just switch them up every so often. In all likelihood, nobody's going to be able to figure out what exactly is wrong with the wall in question, but it will make them feel uncomfortable whenever they scan it casually. With that in mind, you're one step closer to alienating everybody you may consider to be your friend. And on that note, I'm leaving. Making the lives of adolescents difficult one step at a time. Chairs, but sitting at a computer chair in general, especially for you Tumblr folk, is